Hello and welcome to Unmuted Beyond the Good Girl. I'm your host, Gillian Ray, and this is the podcast where we speak the truth we were trained to hide. I'm an ex-good girl, a recovering people pleaser, and someone who used to bottle up their feelings and opinions rather than cause a fuss. I also run a membership for other ex-good girls called the Speakeasy, where we are getting loud about the things we used to stay quiet about. In that Speakeasy, we've got journaling sessions, coaching circles, and deep dives into archetypes. Like this week, the archetype we were looking at was the lover archetype, and we talked about pleasure, sensuality, and desire. So, exploring these archetypes has been a great way to listen to what's going on inside our minds and separate some of those internal voices out a little bit. I haven't always known if my internal voice is really me. After all, it all sounds the same, right? I mean, you're looking in the mirror, the internal voice says, "Oh, I look a bit shit today." Or you go to the kitchen, maybe you say, "Oh, I fancy a cup of tea." It's the same internal voice, isn't it? I mean, and I certainly thought that for years. But then I realized that some of this chatter inside was kind of arguing with itself. And I was thinking, well, does this mean I'm just arguing with myself? What's really going on here? Um, and I think like the main way that I've dealt with internal voices over time is that I've started to externalize them in some way through either journaling, writing, poetry, coaching, those kind of things. And you start to realize, like, hang on a minute, are all of these voices really, really me? I mean, when I first started writing poetry, one of the things that I quite like to do was to give voice to other things. For example, one of my early poems I wrote from the perspective of an iron on an ironing board. This poor iron, was so sick of being sat in my living room, never actually being used for ironing, that it kind of thought it was on display in the Tate Modern, and it kind of wrote from that perspective. And that's actually quite a common thing that poets actually like to do. I explored that quite a lot in my Echoes and Embers poetry course. I'm actually getting way, way, way off the point. That's not what this whole episode wasn't meant to be about poetry, but I just started thinking about poetry there. So yeah, what is the point of this episode? The point of this episode is that things are talking to us. I mean, not literally, of course. I'm not saying that my water bottle over there is like shouting, "Hey, Gillian," but they may as well be shouting sometimes or holding up big giant signs for the amount of internal noise they can have. Um, you know, we might have all got different levels of sensitivity to the voice of things. And I may be particularly sensitive there, as just before Christmas, I just felt like everything in my whole house was like screaming at me. And, if you're struggling with mental load already and you've already got loads of open tabs, the last thing you need is shouty personal belongings, making everything feel even more overwhelming. And I felt really overwhelmed in a lot of way. And I don't actually have that much stuff, but even the stuff that I had, I felt like it had too much to say. And it was saying things like organize me, sort me, tidy me up. And that was really just the beginning of what it was saying. So some things had been louder than others. So let me say, have you ever made a mistake, for example, in a purchase? You've bought something and then thought, "Oh my God, I regret it." But then it's cost a lot of money, so you don't want to throw it out, okay? So what's that object saying to you every time you look at it? Or someone bought you a gift and it would be rude to give it away, but you really hate it. And so every time you see it, it's kind of whispering about your lack of gratitude. Or you end up hiding it in a cupboard and then you rediscover it and then you have to deal with it all over again. So, as I said earlier, things obviously don't have literal voices, but they can start to take up not just physical space in our homes, but kind of like psychic real estate in our minds. A bit like that ironing board from my poem. I mean, it had a lot to say to me, partly because it was mostly ignored and my pile of ironing was stacking up while I was sitting and I was writing this poem when I was doing my English degree like about 15 years ago. And I was like writing this poem, and I'd actually got really into writing poetry, and I'd written way more poetry than I needed to write for my creative writing degree. And I ended up like ignoring all the other things. And then the ironing board and the iron and the big pile of laundry, they were starting to have a bit of a shout at me. Come on, you're being distracted. So yeah, that's kind of what I'm talking about, really. Um, and or again, like the things like those mistaken purchases. So yeah, and if we go back to sort of things that we maybe have bought and they've got something to say to us, my friend Jessica, who's been a guest on this show, she's an amazing financial coach, and she did an episode with me about the money conversation. If you've not listened to that, definitely go listen to that. She tells this story about an exercise bike, and if you're at home nodding along with this, you may have also made this kind of purchase yourself. So yeah, Jessica bought this exercise bike during COVID when we were all trapped inside. And then, when life returned to normal and she could get back to the gym and go walking, she stopped using it. So now it costs a lot of money, and so it's worth something. But this machine was speaking to her every time she looked at it. It was sending her on a guilt trip for not using it. Now, I don't know exactly what tone of voice it was taking with her or its actual words, but it probably went something like this. Are you ever going to use me? You know I'm a valuable piece of equipment, and you're just letting me gather dust in the corner? Come on, do a quick spin. Fine, be like that. I'll just sit here until you feel a bit less lazy, shall I? I hope Jessica will forgive my wild imagination here. Maybe it just said, "Hello, I'm still here." Either way, this thing was taking up much more mental square footage than it was apartment square footage. And maybe it was making her question her decision to buy it in the first place, and causing her to do mental calculations on its resale value and was it really worth it? And well, when she eventually realized it was taking up space in her home and her mind and sold it on, uh, well, now it's not shouting, "Get on your bike every day," or it might be, but to a new owner now. Um, so this is what I mean when I'm talking about the voice of things. When something we own triggers a voice in our head that makes us feel bad, disappointed, guilty, or frustrated. I mean, what's something's real value in pounds and pence when it causes you daily grief? For example, I've got this desk and it's broken, okay? It's supposed to go up and down, so I can either stand and sit, but it's actually stuck and stuck at a really weird height. So when I'm like filming this, I've got you propped up on books and all sorts of stuff because it's filmed, it's stuck at a really annoying height. And yeah, it kind of says things to me like, well, you wasted money on me. You can't even fix this. You should have researched standing desks, not just bought the cheapest one on Amazon. Now, it's actually quite a nice desk in other ways, so I do actually forgive it for its rudeness, but it is reminding me, oh gosh, I made a bad purchase there. And then the other thing is clothes. I don't know about you, but I have a lot of clothes in my wardrobe that don't actually fit me. And sometimes when I look at those clothes, they say things to me like, get off your ass and go and do a run. Or do you remember when you used to fit in this? Look at the size of you now. I mean, they're very, very rude, these clothes. So yeah, I don't actually have these clothes anymore, most of them, because as I said, before Christmas, I felt like everything was kind of shouting at me. And one of the things that was shouting me was just how much clothes I had and how much space they were taking up, especially the ones I didn't wear. And I no longer have those. They went to a charity shop because I don't need to be keeping clothes that are so downright rude to me. I don't want anyone speaking to me like that in my life, not me, not my clothes, not my friends. So yeah, I've got rid of them. What about things you inherit? They could be saying things like, if you really loved your grandma, you'd take better care of me. Or, why am I stuffed at the back of the cupboard when I was your mum's pride and joy? So, I mean, again, I am going to say it again, like before anyone starts reporting me and thinking that, I need a bit of help, obviously the things are not really talking to us. But does this voice of things that I'm describing sound a little bit like the good girl voice, the people pleaser? Oh, Judy will be upset if I throw it out. The martyr. Oh, I bought it. I have to live with my decision. The conflict avoider. My significant other wants to keep it, so I'll just put up with it, even though it takes up half the bedroom and it's hideous. But I can endure it if it makes them happy. Okay. All right, that was probably a bit way specific, actually. Anyway, I do love a good declutter. Do you know when your space is full of things that you absolutely love? Then the voice of things are joyful and happy. I mean, I love the stories of things. Take this typewriter. It belongs to my mum's friend Lou, but I love it. It says, I am a treasure from the past and a reminder of your present. But the thing is, when it was in Lou's mum's house, it wasn't being used. It was in storage. And I mean, technically, it's not actually being used because I haven't got around to servicing it and buying a new ribbon, but it is bringing me joy. And I mean, there's a whole story about why it brings me so much joy, because I had this really crazy idea at one point to become a street poet, where I would go and I'd take a typewriter and people would come up to me and they'd say, write me a poem, and they'd give me a theme and I'd just bash a poem out really quickly, and I'd take a bit of money or a contribution or whatever for it. But that was like one of my more, I don't know, slightly wacky ideas. But the thing is, like, I'd been telling my mum about this idea, and I'd seen this typewriter in this beautiful shop, and it had all been refurbished, and it was all working, and it was all checking out. And but I don't know, it was like over £200. I was like, oh, that's ever such a lot of money for a secondhand typewriter. But at least I know it would work. And if I want to do this seriously and go around the streets writing poems for people, I probably should do it. No, this is what you got to love about my mum. She is so supportive, that she was all for it. She was like going to come to markets with me and like sell my poetry books for me while I was typing things up for people. And so she starts telling her friend Lou about how, I had seen this beautiful typewriter that I really liked, but it was really expensive. And then Lou says, oh, I think I've got a typewriter. My mum's got one that used to belong to my dad. And the next thing you know, she gets it and it's in its case, and I open it and I swear it was the exact same model in the exact same color as the one that I'd kind of set my heart on in this like really expensive shop. So, and my mum didn't know that. She just said, oh, it's my daughter wants a typewriter. And I do love my mum. She was very, very supportive of this entire plan. At one point, she even said, oh, well, you can test it on me. And would you like to write me like an instant poem, like a street poem? And I said, okay, yeah, give me a topic. And well, my mum actually chose the topic of her late dog, a dog that was a dog called Sparky, a poodle that had to get put down because it had bit her gran. And I was like, okay, mum, like, thanks for that topic. Yeah, I'm hoping that if I do this street poetry, I get some slightly nicer topics. But I did write her a lovely little poem called Sparky. Let me know if you want to hear it sometime. So yeah, give us a comment if you would like to hear the poem that I wrote for my mum in under a minute about her dear departed dog. Anyway, I am way off course today, and I am talking all about my poetry and all sorts of things. But you know what? I'm just having a bit of fun today. I've found this topic. Yeah, there's a serious side to it. How we like the good girl voice is still kind of present with us, even though we might be becoming aware of it. We're trying to move beyond the good girl, and she's still like hanging around at times. And I'm saying, when we fill our space with joyful things and things that really bring joy to us, the voice of this typewriter, for example, it's telling me this hilarious story. It's reminding me of that whole thing. And instead of looking at something that's making me feel guilty, and, if I ever do sell this desk, I'm going to buy another beautiful desk, and it's going to have a real story about it. So yeah, have you seen that Japanese declutter expert Marie Kondo? She talks about, do objects spark joy in you? I've also got this beautiful Tibetan sort of singing bowl. It's not expensive. It's just like a fairly, cheap thing, but it's such a meaningful gift because it came from my brother, and I both use it, I ring it and sit and do my meditation, but I also love looking at it. And I love the fact that he gave it to me at the time that he gave it to me, gave it to me when I was going through my cancer. And it was like to help me just like find stillness in all of that. And, you know, I want to surround myself with things that have stories and that bring me joy. Um, so yeah, there is, as I say, there is a link. I mean, it might feel tenuous at the moment, but when we start to move beyond the good girl, beyond accepting the status quo, beyond people pleasing and keeping the peace, we start to wake up to what we really want. And we start asking questions about what brings us pleasure, a bit like what we were talking about with the lover archetype. We start to move beyond, I really should keep this, it cost a lot of money, or it was a gift, or I inherited it, or I might fit in it again, to I don't need it, I don't love it, or I don't want it, and I can let it go without guilt. And if we can sell it and get some cash for something we really want, even better, because as Jessica, our money saving queen herself says, found money is free money. And so as women living beyond the good girl, our lives are free of that old conditioning that says I must or I should. And so we can fill our physical spaces with things that bring us joy and delight. We can have a wardrobe of outfits that reflect who we are, not who we were. And we can even have a kitchen full of food we enjoy eating. Like I threw out so many tins and stuff of food that I'd bought that I don't know what I was thinking. I didn't throw them out. I took them to the food bank, but because like I was like buying all this stuff at one point, and I'm like, I don't even like eating this. Why have I been buying that? I think it was because I thought it would be good for me. So I even got rid of a lot of that during my big pre-New Year clear out. So yeah, as I say, last month in the Speakeasy, we have been thinking about pleasure as we explored the lover archetype. And this month, we're looking at the huntress archetype. Now, the huntress knows what she wants. She knows her values and her goals, and she is the focused feminine. She isn't distracted by noisy items in her space. She just puts them on eBay or Vinted or Marketplace and gets some cash for what she really wants. So if you resonate with anything I've talked about in this episode, you might enjoy my monthly membership, The Speakeasy. We meet 3 times a month and we talk about these sort of things, and we talk about the archetypes, and we also hold each other accountable and inspire each other to live the lives we truly desire beyond the good girl. And it's still on my founder's offer of only £35 a month, and so I will link to that in the show notes. So I've also put a link to Jessica's program Awaken. So I've actually done this program myself. I had Jessica on my show, and after that, I realized that actually almost during the conversation, that I was not financially prepared for the future. And I also realized that I had a lot of really old stories in my head about money. I mean, the kind of things that we're talking about today, like the voices that don't really belong to us, and or they belong to an old part of us, or they belong to a different generation, or their family stories or cultural stories about money. And I realized that I actually had a lot of those kind of stories in my own head. And so I joined a program last year, and it has totally revolutionized the way I think about money. It's given me the mindset, the budget skills, and the financial literacy I needed to really feel in control of my own money. I mean, we're really not taught that in school, and a lot of what we learn is just picked up from here and there. And Jessica has such a skill at laying everything out like a pathway, really, and making it all make sense. And it's incredibly empowering to know that I've got the skills to manage my money, that I'm prepared for an emergency, and that I'm building towards a future for myself and my children. And Anyway, I can't recommend working with her highly enough. Her program is open right now to register for it. I'll put a link in there for that. It's called Awaken. She has other programs as well, but the one that I've done is Awaken, and I really recommend it. It's amazing. Oh my goodness, I'm talking on and on and on today, aren't I? Yeah, so let me know in the comments if you've got a noisy home full of shouty objects, or if you know someone who you think might enjoy this episode, please share it with them. Yeah, this is where I stop talking, but the conversation continues in the speakeasy. Until next time.